The Clarvian diplomatic station hung in the void like a steel fortress, bristling with weapons that could vaporize a moon. Inside its sterile corridors, Ambassador Thelgzar paced nervously, his forearms clasped behind his chitinous back. The human was late. Perhaps they reconsidered, his aide whispered, mandibles clicking anxiously. The treaty terms were unfavorable to them. Thelgzar's compound eyes flickered. Unfavorable was an understatement. The Galactic Council had demanded Earth surrender 3 colony worlds, restrict their military fleet, and accept permanent monitoring. Humanity had lost the war, barely, bloodily, expensively for all sides, and now they would learn what defeat tasted like. The airlock hissed open. What emerged made every Clarvian guard tense, weapons rising instinctively. But it wasn't an armored delegation or a military contingent. It was a single human male, tall and lean, wearing what appeared to be soft fabric coverings decorated with tiny spaceships. Pajamas, Thelgzar's translator helpfully supplied. The human was wearing sleeping garments to a diplomatic negotiation. Jonas Vale, the human introduced himself, voice casual, as if he'd just wandered in from his living quarters. Sorry I'm late. Had to feed the kids. Before Thelgzar could respond, something small and furry darted past Vale's legs. Then another and another. Clarvian cubs. 7 of them, ranging from barely weaned to adolescent, tumbled into the diplomatic chamber with the chaotic energy of youth. They chirped and squeaked, tiny claws clicking on the metal floor. The guards' weapons lowered in confusion, then rose again, targeting the human. What is the meaning of this? Thelgzar demanded, his voice a threatening rumble that had made planetary governors weep. Those are children, Clarvian children. How did you— Found them floating in an escape pod near the Kessler Nebula, Vale said, scratching his stubbled chin. He yawned. Debris from your cruiser Vengeance, I think? The one that tried to glass our colony on Proxima 7. His tone remained conversational, almost friendly. Looked like the crew evacuated the cubs first when we returned fire. Smart. We do the same with our kids. The smallest cub, Riken, barely past his naming day, scurried up Vale's leg with surprising agility and perched on his shoulder, tiny claws tangled in the human's hair. The human didn't even flinch. You rescued them? Thelgzar's translator struggled with the concept. Warriors did not rescue enemy offspring. They used them as leverage, as hostages, as— Fed them, actually, Vale interrupted, as if reading his thoughts. Turns out your cubs will eat almost anything if you mash it up enough. Riken here likes Earth strawberries. Don't ask me why. He gestured to the cub on his shoulder, who chirped contentedly and nuzzled against Vale's neck. The other cubs had spread throughout the chamber, completely unafraid. They investigated the guards' armor, climbed on furniture, and generally behaved like children anywhere in the galaxy. Curious, fearless, trusting. One attempted to gnaw on a guard's boot. The massive Clarvian warrior, encased in enough combat plating to withstand plasma fire, stood frozen, utterly bewildered. We have terms for their return, Thelgzar began, recovering his composure. You will surrender the colonies, accept our monitoring, and— No. The word hung in the air like a blade. Vale's expression hadn't changed, still relaxed, still slightly sleep-deprived, but something in his eyes made Thelgzar's instincts scream predator. No, Thelgzar repeated. Here's what's going to happen, Vale said, gently disentangling Riken from his hair and setting the cub down. The small creature immediately tried to climb back up. You're going to take these kids home. You're going to tell their families they're safe, and you're going to tell the Galactic Council that Earth doesn't surrender. You lost the war, human. We lost a war, Vale corrected. We've lost lots of things, wars, planets, entire fleets. He looked down at Riken, who had successfully reclaimed his position on Vale's shoulder. But we've never lost this. He tapped his chest. You know what we call it? Humanity. Maybe you don't have a word for it. Thelgzar's guards shifted nervously. Their combat suits registered elevated threat levels, but their weapons systems couldn't reconcile the target, a male in sleeping garments surrounded by children. You kept 7 enemy cubs alive for 3 months, Thelzar said slowly, his mind racing through implications. You fed them, protected them. Why? Vale looked at him as if the question was absurd. Because they're kids, because someone somewhere is missing them. He paused. Because when your ship was dying, your crew chose to save them instead of weapons or supplies or tactical data. They chose life. That's something we understand. Rickon made a small, sleepy sound and curled against Vale's neck. The other cubs had tired of their exploration and were gathering around the humans' feet, some already drowsing. Do you know what your council fears most about humans? Vale asked quietly. It's not our weapons. It's not our tactics or our stubbornness. He gestured to the cubs. It's that we'll make you care. That we'll remind you what you used to be before you became an empire. Before conquest and territory and pride became more important than... He trailed off, looking down at the sleeping cubs. More important than this. Thelgzar felt something crack in his certainty. His own offspring were grown, serving in the fleet. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen them as anything other than soldiers. But he remembered when they'd been small, when they'd climbed on him with those same tiny claws, chirping for attention. The treaty, he started, is worthless, Vale finished. You can't enforce it. We both know that. Cost you 3 fleets just to push us back to our home system. Want to try for Sol itself? His smile was gentle, almost pitying. You'll win, eventually. And then what? You'll have a graveyard where a civilization used to be. Is that victory? The chamber fell silent except for the soft breathing of sleeping cubs. We're keeping our colonies, Vale said firmly. We're rebuilding our fleet. And we're staying in the Galactic Council as equals, not subjects. He carefully scooped up Rickon and 2 other cubs, cradling them with practiced ease. But we're also returning your children unconditionally, because that's what humans do. Thelzar stared at this bizarre creature in pajamas, holding enemy cubs like they were precious treasures. In that moment, he understood why humanity had survived their first contact war, why they'd fought 5 galactic powers to a standstill, why the Council feared them. It wasn't their violence, it was their compassion. It was the stubborn, illogical, beautiful insistence that some things mattered more than winning. I will convey your position to the Council, Thelgzar said finally. Vale nodded. Tell them something else. Tell them humans remember who showed mercy, and we remember who didn't. He handed Rickon to Thelgzar. The cub, still half asleep, nuzzled into the ambassador's arms instinctively. When your grand cubs ask what happened in the human war, you can tell them you got to be the hero who brought their parents home. As Vale prepared to leave, collecting the remaining cubs with the efficiency of an experienced parent, Thelgzar called out, Why pajamas? Vale glanced back, grinning. Because I was sleeping when you called for this meeting. The cubs needed their rest, and I figured if you were going to kill me, I might as well be comfortable. He shrugged. Besides, seemed to make a point. After the human left, Thelgzar stood holding Rickon, feeling the cub's heartbeat against his chest. His guards remained at attention, but their weapons had long since lowered. The war, Thelgzar realized, was over. Humanity had won it the moment they'd chosen to rescue 7 enemy cubs instead of leaving them to drift in the void. And they'd won it wearing pajamas.